Okay, so welcome to round 8. So after my tournament hopes were dashed the previous round, I was now playing on the black side against candidate master Lionel Adu. I mean, another very strong player, a former national champion. Um, Also kind of a dark horse in pretty much any tournament he plays. You never really know what form he's going to show up in. I think this particular tournament hadn't been going all that well so far for him. I mean, for me either. So we're just going to play it out. It's kind of easy to prepare against him because he has a very specific style that he pretty much never deviates from. I mean, you play against him, you know he's going to fianchetto one bishop. You know he's going to fianchetto the other. I mean, the bishop near the king side with fianchetto. The other bishop is going to exchange for your knight. Then he's going to put his pawns in a triangle formation, and he plays it almost without variation, and with both colors. So it's not too difficult to prepare for him, but it's also a very, very solid setup that doesn't really have any obvious weaknesses, and he has such vast experience playing it. So he's very solid, very difficult to beat, but not too difficult to prepare for. I think for this game I did zero preparation. I mean, after the last game, the rest of the tournament was just basically play and let's see how it goes kind of thing. I'd lost most of my drive, but yeah. So I mean, I just showed up to play the game. I decided to just put my pieces on squares and see what happens. So he started d4, knight f6, and he played g3. I went d5, bishop g2, all the kind of things you expect. e6, the other bishop came to g5, bishop e7. He duly took on f6 without provocation. Bishop takes back, knight f3. I castled, he played c3. I played b6. I didn't put my other bishop on the long diagonal just to neutralize his. And I mean, I'd also played e6 already, so that was the only logical place for my other bishop. He castled, bishop went to b7, knight went to d2, my other knight went to d7. He played rook e1, and I played c5. And here he played e3. He always goes for this kind of triangle, pawns in the center. And I mean, I thought it was a bit weird because you have a bishop here, you have a knight here, you have a rook here. All of that is sort of telegraphing that you want to play e4 and not e3. So it was a bit inconsistent with the previous moves that he had made. But I mean that's the system he plays, so I wasn't really surprised. So I put my queen on c7, his queen came to b3. I brought my rooks into the center, and then he pushed a4. An interesting move. The idea, it gains space on the queen side, but it also telegraphs the move a5, and then maybe he gets a weakness to play against on b6, or if you have to take, then he gets a weakness to play against on the a file. So it's always a kind of an awkward move to face. But there are many ways of meeting it. You can go a5, but I didn't really want to go a5 because you kind of give him the square as an outpost forever. And here, I think they have ideas of his knight going all the way back just to come and inhabit that square. Because there's so little, there's not much you can do about it. So I decided to go a6, and this is an idea that you see often when it comes to meeting these kind of flank attacks. You basically put both your pawns on the third rank from your king, and the idea is that whenever they push, you're just going to push the other pawn. So if you were to go let me see, if you were to go a5, I'll just go b5, and then just be like, you're never opening up a file. If there were another pawn here, whenever it gets here, you just push the other one. It's an idea that I think was played by some world champion somewhere, but it's a fairly common idea, well known. You see it a lot of time on the king side when people are going for these kind of flank attacks. Just put your pawns on the sith, and then wherever they hit you, just push the other pawn, and you kind of lock it up. So that was my response. So he brought the rook over to c1, telegraphing that maybe he wants to break rather with c4. I just played rook c8, just meeting him there. And then he played a very strange move. He took the rook that he just moved from a to c back to a1, and I wasn't sure why. I thought maybe he was thinking he was going to go a5, and maybe I didn't think that my idea was b5. Maybe he thought I was planning to just take, and then he was going to try and get some counterplay that way. But it was very strange. I don't see what the rook is doing here. So here I felt fairly confident about opening up the center. I've developed all my pieces to where I want them, and so I broke with e5. So the pawn took, my knight took back, The knight took, my bishop took. And in general, because he decides early in the opening to give up the bishop pair, I don't mind playing an open position. So at some point I do want to open up the center. And in general, I'll try and argue that the open lines will favor my bishop pair. He put the knight on f3, my bishop dropped back to f6. Then the e rook came to the d file to try and put some pressure on this guy. I played g6 just to make some space for my bishop to roam freely. He played rook d2 to doubling on the file. I played rook d6 just doubled back. Rook a1, rook c d8 were played. Then he dropped the queen back to c2. And he have a fine position. I'm slightly better, but it's probably closer to equal than it is to any side having a significant advantage. Mainly because I have the bishop and I have more potential for my pieces. So here, I mean, what to do, right? Mainly the pieces I want to improve are my queen. The queen is not really doing much now. And my bishop, right, is kind of biting on granite. It's defending the pawn, which is fine. But it's not really doing all that much. Because of his queen had just dropped here, it occurred to me that my bishop will probably do a fine job on this diagonal. So I play bishop c8 just to get my bishop here to f5. He played h4, gaining some space on the king side. I played bishop f5. The queen came back to b3. And then I just went king g7. So here, again, I'm slightly better because of my bishops, but there's still no breaks in the position yet. Here he played knight e1. Another move that I found quite strange. I'm not sure exactly where the knight was headed. I mean, there aren't really any outposts for the knight to inhabit as yet. Maybe this was the idea. Maybe he wanted to go knight to d3 to f4 and then put more pressure on this pawn. Maybe. I mean, that's many moves away. But basically, the knight was part of the defense for the square d4. So the second it stepped back, it means I can break with d4, which I did immediately. So we had a big trade on d4, traded everything, all the rooks off. And we came down to this position where I have the bishop pair still. Position is now completely open. So the bishop pair can really show their might. And his piece is really still under great, right? This knight is horrible. And this bishop currently is biting on nothing. Whereas my guys are half targets, right? So yeah, I'm doing significantly better here. Still not winning, but I mean, it's a pleasant position to play. Play knight f3, my bishop dropped back. So my bishop didn't drop back. So here I play queen c1 check. Putting the kibosh on this king because the king is the only guy protecting the f7 pawn, the f2 pawn. Sorry. So he has to play bishop f1. Then I play bishop h3, and I put a lot of pressure on this position. So he has to play queen either d3 or c4 to protect that bishop. And here I thought in my mind, oh, I'm just winning. I mean, bishop takes, queen takes, king takes, and I take this pawn on b2. And I mean, it's close to game over. I have an extra pawn here on the queen side. I'll have a bishop versus knight. That'll be an easily winning endgame. But of course I can't take with the bishop first because he's threatening to take my bishop with check. So the best move was actually for me to take this pawn, and then do the sequence I just spoke of. But and the reason is because I'll show you the reason. Because if I do it the way I do, because I can't take with the bishop, I have to take first with the queen, right? So I take with the queen, queen takes, bishop takes, and the problem is he does not have to play king takes and let me take on b2. He can just play knight takes d4 and leave my bishop rather there. And now material is equal. I'll save my bishop somehow, and it's a minor piece endgame where because I have the bishop in this position with pawns on both sides of the board, theoretically speaking, I have a slight advantage. But practically, it would be difficult to win. He would still have to make another kind of mistake somewhere because, as it is, it's still much closer to equal than it is to winning. So this is what should have happened. And I did indeed play queen takes f1. The queen took back, my bishop took. And here something funny happened. The second I played bishop takes, I saw that, wait a minute, he can actually just take on d4. And I was very annoyed with myself because, I mean, if I'd seen this beforehand, I wouldn't go for this simplification because my pieces were really dominating. There was no reason to trade all these guys off if at the end I just get a slightly better endgame. I would have kept the pieces on the board. So I was quite annoyed when I saw it, but I mean, I tried to stay calm. And I mean, when bishop takes, you take back with the king. It's like automatic. So when the bishop took, he held his king, and then he saw knight d4. So he went like oof with his, but his hand was holding the king, so there was nothing he could do about it. It was quite funny. And yeah, so I mean, after a while, he had to take back on f1, and this endgame after bishop takes b2 is just very very easily winning. The kings will join the action, but I'll create a pass pawn over here on the queen side, and you will just push that pass pawn. He'll have to give up his knight for it. Then you will come back and win over here on the king side with an extra piece, and that's exactly what happened. The game continued beyond this point, but the moves will forever be lost to humanity. I think the recording either was unclear, or I think time trouble also became an issue. But so the moves, I didn't really have them, but eventually I won without too much difficulty, I must say. So it was a fairly pleasant game. I did almost mess it up, but thankfully it was a moment of mutual blindness. That's an idea for idea, and I managed to win in round 8. Thank you very much for tuning once again. Just one more game left. I hope to catch you there as we conclude this year's nationals. Leave a comment, drop a like, subscribe if you haven't. Catch you later.